Hey guys, and welcome. If you ever wondered how easily your life could fall apart in just one afternoon, these movies may have some suggestions. These are not comfort watches. And while some of them will leave you sitting on the edge of your seat, the others will make you question how some humans are capable of unimaginable atrocities. And one thing is for sure, you will be left wondering what you would do in a similar situation. I know that I still think about these titles days, weeks, months after I watch them. So I guess they really did crawl deep under my skin. So let's get them out. Number one is The Coffee Table. The Coffee Table opens with the kind of tension most movies rarely show. The small, bitter kind that builds up in long-term relationships until it turns everything sour. The opening furniture store scene feels like you're witnessing a couple who's been together for a while. You can just tell from the way they talk to each other. The little jabs pointed at the exact places where it would hurt the other person, spoken in a way that's pretty devoid of affection, just a tad condescending at times. They're just tired and putting up with each other, but at the same time, you realize they have a small child, which obviously makes one forget the reasons you fell in love in the first place. I don't know about you, but I am a monster. When I don't get 9 hours of sleep, I can only imagine how unpleasant I'd be if I was spending half the night tending to my offspring. The husband's name is Jesus, and his wife is called Maria. She rolls her eyes at the salesman they're talking to. He pretends not to notice her contempt. After all, why put it out in the open? He's still trying to make a sale after all. She picks out something practical, but the husband insists on the ugliest glass-top table in the entire store just to assert himself. It's this moment where you immediately get who these people are. Two adults stuck in a loop of resentment and exhaustion, held together mostly by a newborn they're not quite ready to handle. But finally, Maria caves and agrees to let Jesus get the table. You know, sometimes you just gotta pick your battles. Once they bring the table home, the movie settles into a rhythm that feels deceptively normal. Laundry half folded on the couch, baby toys scattered around. The film gives you just enough time to understand that Jesus is stretched thin, and Maria's trapped in her own disappointment, and the two of them spend more time tiptoeing around each other than actually talking. After a few minutes, Maria tells Jesus she's going to go to the grocery store and pick up some last-minute items, as they're having Jesus' brother and his new young girlfriend over. Mind you, prior to watching the movie, I didn't really read anything about it, and since I loved the chaos that unveils within the first 20 minutes, I will not disclose what happens either. I would really recommend that you don't read anything prior to watching it, as the best thing about the film is how it revolves around this one situation and how it gets out of control completely. I'm not normally talkative when watching movies, but with this one, I found myself saying, "Oh no, that's a terrible idea," and "don't do that" constantly. It was just very tense, and the actors did an incredible job. This movie is one of the best examples of amazing pressure building I've ever seen. Number two is The Vanishing, the one from 1988. The Vanishing begins like a nothing day and a nothing vacation. Rex and Saskia bicker in that slightly mean, slightly affectionate way couples do when they're stuck in a car with too much heat and not enough patience. It feels harmless and kind of familiar. Then they pull into the gas station, and Saskia wanders inside, and the world just swallows her. She's there and then she's not. You discover her disappearance at the same time Rex does, and you can see yourself taking the exact same steps. You can imagine how terrifying and helpless you'd feel, knowing that with every second that goes by, Your loved one must be terrified and is definitely hoping that you're somehow on the way, that you'll somehow save them. Someone must have seen something, right? But no one did. Whatever happened took meticulous planning. It must have been done by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Rex tries to keep functioning after she disappears, but there's an emptiness to him, which I guess is only natural. It's a man whose brain has latched onto one question and refuses to release it. Even years later, he's still trying to find answers. He's carrying Saskia's memory the way someone would carry a brick. Heavy, awkward, brutal. And with every passing year, you can see that brick grinding him down. Raymond, the man responsible, is a very interesting villain. The actor did an amazing job playing the role of a psychopath. You'd have to see it for yourself. He times his own breathing, practices abduction like someone practicing golf swings, and just goes about the whole ordeal in a very practical way. Watching him rehearse is somehow worse than watching him act. Seeing how nothing that happens to his victims was a crime of passion, rather a finale to his meticulous planning. The middle of the film is a slow psychological suffocation. Rex keeps returning to the site where Saskia vanished, like he's performing a ritual. Flyers, phone calls, newspaper clippings. His life turns into a shrine built out of desperation. Meanwhile, Raymond goes about his days teaching his daughter to swim, buying groceries, treating his family with a bland politeness that feels more disturbing than cruelty ever could. He even gets his family members to help him try things out that would later help with his kidnapping, without their knowledge, of course. The two men, Rex and Raymond, are obsessed with each other. Raymond is curious as to how kidnapping Rex's girlfriend has impacted him. He wants to see and feel the grief and the emotions, the desperation Rex has been living with firsthand. He wants to see how far he can push him, like it's an experiment. And Rex is just beyond desperate to find out what happened on that fateful day at the gas station, and he's willing to pay any price for it. The Vanishing is incredible at showing what could possibly be happening before an abduction takes place, how methodical a perpetrator can be. There's this cold realism behind it that has definitely reminded me of how easy it would be to make someone disappear with a plan and some luck. If you don't like slow burn, this movie will definitely not be for you, as it mainly focuses on the mundane actions of both protagonists, but it does reward you with a nice punch in the gut at the end. Number 3, Eden Lake. I swear, Eden Lake begins the way those doomed weekend getaways always do, but it wouldn't be on this list if it was reminiscent of how all of the other ones go. Jenny and Steve show up with this hopeful glow, hauling their bags around as if sunshine is some kind of relationship glue, which honestly it is. Anyway, things go sideways early. The warning sign isn't a creepy stranger or a dead animal or any of the usual horror decor. Nope. It's a pack of teenagers. Arguably the most terrifying thing in the world. Actual, everyday teenagers with explosive moods, filthy sneakers, and a Bluetooth speaker blasting whatever obnoxious song. They settle onto the beach with the confidence of landlords inspecting their own property. Brett, the tyrant leading the pack, radiates this attitude of someone who's never encountered a consequence in his entire life. Not long after comes the tire slashing incident. Watching Steve march over to confront them stirred up that all too familiar secondhand anxiety. A grown man strides over, chest puffed, convinced he's in charge. He opens his mouth, and within about 2 seconds, it becomes clear the kids just don't care. Why would they? He's outnumbered, outmatched, and completely misreads the ecosystem he stepped into. Needless to say, the situation becomes dire fast, with seemingly no return. The kids are not to be reasoned with, and their anger is so palpable, the couple is left with one choice only: to try and get away. Once the couple drifts into the woods, though, the movie starts breathing differently. The forest turns on them, watching Jenny dart between the trees, stumbling over roots, gasping like her lungs are on a strike. I kept thinking about those dreams where your body refuses to do what you need it to do. She hides behind these little scraps of trees that would barely conceal a house cat. Meanwhile, the teens really lean into the cruel impulses. One records everything. Another copies Brett's behavior with the desperation of a kid who'd rather become a monster than be the next target. Besides the chase, the movie shows what the dynamic between children who struggle to find their place and then turn to violence as a means of establishing dominance can look like. It's clear what the hierarchy of the group is and how those who dare to go against the leader will be met with consequences. How even if you don't want to proceed with the hunt, there is no way out. The brilliance of Eden Lake is how little it exaggerates. There's no mythical beast, clever traps, or Scooby-Doo logic. Just the awful truth that a regular afternoon can easily mutate into a nightmare if you bump into the wrong cluster of damaged kids with too much boredom and not enough conscience. Number 4 is the act of killing. So, I've always thought documentaries were supposed to teach you something. Facts, context, a tidy moral. The act of killing doesn't care about any of that. In short, the documentary talks about the Indonesian mass killings of 1965 to 1966, in which an estimated 500,000 to over 1 million people were systematically murdered for being suspected communists, union members, landless farmers, intellectuals, or ethnic Chinese. However, this documentary focused on the aftermath, or rather the lives of those who made this whole thing happen. Yes, we get to see who they really are, how they live, and how they feel about the atrocities they committed back in the 60s. Oh right, by the way, they're not in prison. The thing that rattled me the most is how relaxed they are. These men, Anwar Congo especially, don't behave like confessions are weighing on them. He struts into the frame with this odd mixture of vanity and nostalgia, like an aging lounge singer warming up before a show. He adjusts his shades, tosses out a joke, maybe a dance step if the mood hits him, and then casually describes how he strangled people because it kept things cleaner. Cleaner. The word stuck to my brain like tar. There's a moment where he pantomimes the killings on the same rooftop where he once carried them out. Just this man, reenacting his own brutality with the breezy confidence of someone demonstrating how to fold a shirt. That's the part that gets under your skin. The cheerful tone. Evil with a grin. And he's even humming a tune under his breath. And then the reenactments begin. Joshua Oppenheimer basically tells them, "Go ahead, show me how you want to be remembered." And they leap at the chance. They rebuild torture scenes as musicals, westerns, gangster epics, whatever genre makes them feel mythic. Watching Anwar step onto a glittering set in a sequined outfit, dancers spinning around him right before he recreates a murder, there's a surrealism to it that borders on fever dream. It's grotesque, and yet they're so proud. In one scene, you see a paramilitary thug casually complimenting a mass execution method while sipping an iced drink. Local officials giggling as they wave off any talk of guilt. Anwar, watching himself play a victim and suddenly gagging, his body remembering something his mind refused to admit. There's one scene I found really inconceivable. Anwar's friend reminiscing about burning villages, scratching his stomach like he's talking about an old fishing trip. No shame, no hesitation. And Oppenheimer never gives you closure. There's no righteous third act where justice sweeps in and the perpetrators get arrested. No courtrooms, no consequences. Instead, the film leaves you sitting with the image of a man whose soul finally realizes what his hands have done. It reminds you that atrocities aren't committed by shadows or demons, or the boogeyman under the bed. They come from men who dance, crank jokes, eat fried noodles, brag about their past, and then, without blinking, recreate crimes that should have destroyed them decades ago. So how about you guys? Do you have any movies that you still think about to this day because of how much of an impact they had on you? Maybe they changed your mind on something or kept you so tense that you didn't even realize that you were on the edge of your seat. If you do, please drop your recommendations down below. And as always, if you enjoy the video, please like and or subscribe. My voice is going. And yeah, thank you for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.